Fluency is not about being perfect, it's about being connected. Hi, French learners. Today we are going to give you 4 acts to sound natural. Things you have to take into account in your French learning journey. Let's dive in. Allons-y, c'est parti.
If you're tuning into this explainer, you probably love French culture, right? You're dreaming of mastering the language. But let's just face a very real, very common reality. Reaching a level where you actually feel natural and confident speaking French, well, it's tough. It's really tough. But today, our absolute goal is to transform that rigid, textbook French into fluid, native-sounding speech. We're going to completely bridge the gap between the quiet classroom and the noisy, beautiful cobblestone streets of France. It's a ridiculously frustrating reality, isn't it? You can ace a written grammar test, you can read a classic French novel, and you can perfectly conjugate your verbs all day long. But the very second you step into a lively Parisian cafe and the barista asks you a super simple question at full speed, your English-speaking brain just hits a brick wall. The words blur together, panic sets in, you know the feeling. Well, don't worry, it is completely 100% normal, and I promise you, we are going to fix it today by focusing purely on how the language is actually spoken out in the real world. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here was our dynamic roadmap to sounding like a local. Step 1 is all about mindset and immersion. Step 2, we master the sounds. Step 3 is the art of flow. And finally, step 4, we'll tackle the native lexicon. So, kicking things off with step 1, mindset and immersion. Before we even open our mouths to speak a single word, we have to totally change what's happening inside our heads. You've got to stop translating in your head. I know. It is incredibly tempting. But filtering French through your native language leads to these literal clunky mistakes. For example, in English, we say, I am cold, right? We use the verb to be. But in French, it's j'ai froid, which literally translates to I have cold. So if you translate word for word, you're going to sound robotic and you'll end up pausing awkwardly before every single sentence. Learning words in their natural context is really the only way to speak spontaneously and think directly in French. And honestly, the absolute best way to start thinking in French is to just surround yourself with it. And the good news, you actually don't need to pack up and move to France to immerse yourself. You can easily build a virtual France right in your own home. Change your phone and computer language settings to French. Stick Post-it notes with French vocabulary on your household items, your fridge, your mirror, the whole shebang. Have French radio or podcasts playing in the background while you're cooking dinner. It's all about building those daily habits so your brain just gets used to the constant, everyday presence of the language. All right, moving on to step 2, master the French sounds. This is where we have to tackle the actual physical mechanics of speaking. Because let's be real, some of these sounds simply do not exist in English, which means you have to build entirely new muscle memory in your mouth, your tongue, and your throat. Let's take the notorious French R. Unlike the English R, which we produce way up at the front of the mouth, the French R comes from the back of the throat. Imagine it as a really soft, controlled gargle. So try starting with just a gentle exhalation from the back of your throat, and slowly practice words like Paris or merci. Focus on keeping that airflow right in the back. I promise, with practice, it stops feeling so weird and just becomes second nature. Now, another huge hurdle for learners are the nasal sounds. Looking at the phonetics here, we have distinct sounds like the A in sens, the E in vin, and the O in sang. These are completely unique to French. And the secret trick here? The resonance literally has to vibrate in your nose rather than just your mouth. Try saying vin really slowly right now and physically feel for that vibration in your nasal cavity. Mastering this nasal resonance is an absolute game changer. It's what instantly makes you sound authentically French. And to truly lock those sounds in, you need a secret weapon. It's called shadowing. Shadowing is this incredible technique where you listen to a native speaker, say on a podcast or a YouTube video, and you immediately repeat what they say, right out loud, like an echo. You are trying to perfectly mimic their intonation, their rhythm, and their pronunciation. It's brilliant because it trains your ear and your mouth simultaneously. It helps you overcome that annoying phonetic hesitation, and you internalize the real flow of the language so much faster than just staring at a textbook. Which brings us perfectly to step 3, the art of French flow. So knowing the words and sounds is great, right? But how do native speakers actually string them all together? Well, sounding authentic often means adopting habits that might seem a little lazy to a strict grammar teacher, but are perfectly natural and honestly expected on the streets of Paris. A perfect example of this is the e caduc, which is also known as the dropped e. When French people speak quickly, they frequently just drop the e sound right out of the middle of words. For instance, the word for Saturday, samedi, almost always just becomes samedi. Le médecin, the doctor, becomes le médecin. Dropping these syllables acts as a natural shortcut, and it is a massive, massive hallmark of sounding like a true francophone. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between your classroom grammar and the reality of street French. In a textbook, if you want to say I don't know, you learn to say je ne sais pas. But in everyday, real life, native speakers drop that negative no entirely, and they sort of smash the remaining words together. Je ne sais pas transforms into a really quick, breathy
Je sais pas. Or je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas. In the last one, I keep the two negations. Don't use sais pas when you are addressing people you don't know. It can be too casual and weird. So sais pas is mostly used among teenagers or among friends and your family.
The exact same thing goes for asking questions. Textbooks always teach us to use formal subject-verb inversion, like saying puis-je avoir l'addition to ask for the bill.
And that's very correct and polite in formal situations. It's still commonly used in daily life, but we also have other ways to ask.
Is simply to use a normal statement and just raise your intonation at the very end. Instead of doing some complex grammatical inversion, a parent will just ask, Vous avez faim, les enfants? With their voice pitching up at the end. It's so much simpler and infinitely more natural. Now, as you start trying to adopt this flow, dropping letters, smashing words together, changing your intonations, you are going to mess up, for sure. And you know what? That is fantastic, because it's by making mistakes that we make progress. Perfection is literally the enemy of fluency. Locals will always, always appreciate your genuine effort to speak their language naturally. So please, don't be afraid to sound a little silly while you're finding your footing. Finally, let's look at Step 4, the native lexicon. This is where the real fun begins. This is where we replace that rigid, formal textbook vocabulary with the casual equivalents, the slang, and the filler words that native speakers use in basically every single sentence. And listen, you absolutely cannot talk about French slang without talking about verlan. Verlan is this incredibly famous French slang sociolect, and it's formed by literally inverting the syllables of a word. Fun fact, even the word verlan itself is an inversion of the word l'envers, which means the reverse. It originated in the banlieue or the suburbs as a sort of secret street code, but it has completely exploded into modern pop culture, movies, and rap music. It's absolutely essential if you want to understand casual French. Let's break down exactly how this works, because there's actually a phonetic, almost mathematical formula to verlan. Take the word bizarre, meaning weird. Split the syllables. Bi-zar. Now flip them. Zar-bi. So, zarbi means weird. Or take louche, which means shady. That becomes chelou. And femme, meaning woman, gets flipped and phonetically adjusted a bit to become muff. And honestly, muff is probably the most common verlan word you will ever hear. It's basically the French equivalent of saying chick or girl.
Don't use verlan with people you don't know or in a formal situation. It can be very, very impolite.
But beyond verlan, just everyday casual slang is an absolute must. Standard textbook words get swapped out constantly. Instead of saying un ordinateur for computer, people just say un ordi. Instead of using the formal verb travailler for to work, they say bosser. Manger, to eat, becomes bouffer. And if you want to say you're very tired, instead of très fatigué, you'd say je suis crevé, meaning I'm exhausted. Using these rapid-fire swaps will instantly make you sound way more relatable and relaxed. Next up, we have mots de remplissage, which are basically filler words. Look, when you're speaking and trying to think of what to say next, whatever you do, don't use an English Swap it for the French Or better yet, start using du coup. Du coup sort of loosely translates to so or therefore, but native speakers use it constantly just to bridge awkward pauses. Mastering these little tics de langage fills those dead gaps in your sentences with authentic native sounds, all while giving your brain a crucial extra second to find the right word. And finally, you've got to pepper your speech with idiomatic expressions. For example, if someone doesn't show up for a date, they didn't just miss it, they poser un lapin. They put a rabbit. If you're feeling down or depressed, you avoir le cafard. You have the cockroach. Sleeping in late on a Sunday, that's faire la grasse matinée, doing the fat morning. And if a task isn't really that hard to do, ce n'est pas la mer à boire. It's not the sea to drink. Slipping these into a conversation proves you've stopped translating word for word and are truly thinking in vibrant, colorful French.
It also helps you understand native speakers better.
Well, there you have it. We've broken down the mindset, the sounds, the flow, and the slang. Now it is entirely up to you to take this from passive viewing to active speaking. Will you drop a confident shape today or change those phone settings? And hey, if you are really ready to master this natural flow and sound like a native, I have a massive tip for you. You have the option to learn and speak directly with teacher Emanuela. She has a university degree and years of specialized experience teaching conversational and fluency French. Working with her is the perfect step-by-step guide to enhancing your speaking skills, nailing that pronunciation, and getting the real-time correction you need. She is fantastic at what she does. Thank you so much for tuning into this explainer, and remember, your journey to real fluency starts the very moment you stop translating and start speaking.
Keep practicing, stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next video. À bientôt!